All right, Sal Marino here, host of the One Poor Problems podcast. Today we got an exciting episode for you. We're going to be talking about maintaining work-life harmony, and I have a special guest joining me today. That's Isabela Danielsen, the Acquisitions and Affordability Director at Pratt Whitney. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sal.
Yeah, so I'm
Glad to
super
be here.
excited to kind of dive into your background, talk a little bit about your leadership journey, and I know you have some interesting takes on the topics around work-life harmony, and I'm excited to get into that. So the first part of our show, when we get started, is we break out the drinks. Appreciate you bringing this bottle today. Normally, that's something that we're doing on our side, but I'd love to kind of hear, why is this significant to you, and I'll get that pouring while we're going, and we'll start from there.
Sounds great. So this is the wine that I've been drinking quite a bit over the past few months. It is a small winery in Santiago de Chile, in Chile. They make a very small batch of wines and whatever they make, and so it's just a really nice, robust, just it has that small business feel, and it's just really, really delicious. I hope you like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you bringing this in.
Cheers.
Cheers. So why wine? Is this like the drink of choice? Is this, when you're out or you're, having people over, wine is the drink of choice?
It is my drink of choice. Yeah, I really enjoy wine. And yeah, I've been drinking wine. My family also really enjoys wine, and my father used to make it. And
Very cool.
So I've enjoyed wine for a long time.
That's
Yeah.
great. Very cool. Awesome. So for me, I think the first thing that I want to do is just kind of hear a little about your story. So if you can tell me a little about your background, what your role is at Pratt Whitney,
Sure.
And just kind of talk about the leadership journey that you've been on.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Brazil, and came to the United States, come and went multiple times. I ended up going to school here. I got an LLM from University of Connecticut School of Law, and then Northeastern for my MBA. And then I fell in love. I got married. I've been married to my husband for a long time. We have 2 kids. So here I am. Long story short, I'm here. And I started at Pratt 24 years ago, a long time ago, and never thought I would be there for as long as I have. And I started out as in the legal field. So I was negotiating contracts for large commercial engines. And then from there, I had an opportunity to actually live in Singapore and start their contracts department. So I trained a local attorney in Singapore, and it was a wonderful experience. And then when I came back to the United States, I worked in a compliance. I mean, the theme here is I had a very unusual career path. I've done a lot of things, which is why Pratt is so special, is that you have this opportunity to do all these different things throughout the company. So then I worked in compliance, and then my husband got invited to run flight tests for the 787 in Seattle at Boeing. And we went together, and while I was there, I worked as an ops manager. So basically, I chased parts from airplane to airplane. And then from there, I had a life event happen at that point. So, and we can talk more about that when we talk about the work and life balance. But my son had a medical issue, and I took a year off from work. So when I came back, I was not working for perhaps even a little longer than a year. And then when I came back to work, it was very part-time. I came back 5 hours a week.
Wow.
And then up until I was ready to go back to full-time work, and while I was part-time, I ended up, working whatever jobs that they had that were part-time, that were accommodating me. So I ended up getting exposure to things that I never thought I would, in ops, in programs, in aftermarket. So I worked throughout the business, various different functions. And then that was while I was working at Collins Aerospace, and then which is a sister company of Pratt's. So when I went back to Pratt, I went back as a chief of staff for the vice president of quality at the time, and now she is actually the president of military engines. And then from there, I've stayed in the military area, always focused on transformation, organizational transformation, relationship transformation, culture. But then again, the technical elements is really like, project management, program management, acquisitions, affordability, data management, all of that. So I've had an unusual career path because it's touched a lot of areas throughout the business.
Yeah, wow. No, that's a really unique story.
Yeah.
Starting off on the legal side, and then it does seem like you've touched all different parts of the business. And I think that, you alluded to it a little bit there on the work-life harmony side. I think it's really interesting to see that you're able to, deal with things on the personal side, and then still be able to maintain, a role within the company, move around to where, they felt that, your skill set can be best utilized. And then you've continued to progress your way back up now in the role that you're in. So how do you handle situations like that on the work-life harmony side, right? Like, you had a propelling career, you had a legal degree, you got your MBA, all of that, and you had some family events go on. How do you continue to propel your career, while dealing with that?
So I had a choice, right, at that point. Well, it wasn't really a choice because there is no choice when it comes to my kids. They will always come first. But when Jack had his medical issue, I said I can't do both, right? I can't be a professional and give myself to my work while I'm caring for my child. So I made the choice to, at that point, my choice was I'm going to be with my child, right? My son and my daughter, but my son was the one who really needed me at that point. And then when I came back, I eased myself back into work. And then when I was ready to go back, when I felt like he was okay and I could go back, then I really jumped right back into work. And I was very lucky that I did have the opportunity to continue to have challenging assignments. Even though I was part-time, I still had a lot of visibility, a lot of challenging assignments that were highly visible, and that enhanced my skill set for sure. And I added a lot of tools to my toolbox. Yeah. And even on a personal matter, right? Because as I'm going through all of that, I'm also adding a lot of tools to my toolbox in terms of, understanding that empathy, understanding that people go through situations in their lives that they have no control over. Sometimes they do, but just being understanding, being empathetic, which has served me very well as a leader because I do have that empathy after having gone through what I went through.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I think when you step into a leadership role, I think one of the first things you think about is like that you are like the strong, resilient person that has like the answers to everything and nothing ever goes wrong. And, even from my own perspective that, when I started at Charles IT, I took on as much as I could and I was like the go-to person. And at the time didn't know my own boundaries and pushed myself like to the point where, I had to like physically shut everything down for like a couple weeks, like to the point where I couldn't like almost do anything. And it's really interesting to hear your story to say like it takes those experiences happening to you to also like get the perspective to understand what everybody else is going through. Like I can only imagine how much more effective and how much more like impactful as a leader that you've become since you've had to deal with those experiences, because once you go through it, you can now empathize with the rest of the team and everyone else who's going through that. And so how would you say that's changed your your mindset of your leadership style, by having those experiences?
So there was a point in my life where I would say, I will never do this. Or, I will never be that person. Or, there was some judgment from, seeing other people go through certain things. And I'm like, why aren't they doing X, Y, and Z? Right. And as you go through your journey, and I don't believe that your professional journey is separate than your personal journey, they're all intertwined. As you go through your journey, you learn that things that you had said in the past, I will never do X, Y, and Z, you catch yourself doing them because you're like, now I'm going through this. And yes, that's a choice that I'm making. So that teaches you that judgment is not really, and just being real with people, just talking to them like, from your heart, to really touch them in a way that they feel like you care. Because my work-life integration or harmony is going to look very different than yours. So for instance, sometimes I'll get up. I have, I share that I get up very early and I go and I exercise. It's something that, it sets a tone for my entire day. It's very important to me that I do that. Mind, body, and soul. And I take that time. I don't compromise that. And then I start my work and I'm very focused on the tasks and what I need to do. But then I may have to, pick up a kid, who called me from school or who is sick at school or whatever. So, and I take that time and I do that. And maybe my afternoon is again, right? I am back at work and I'm focused on the tasks, but then, a kid has a presentation or a concert or whatever, and I take an hour and I go do that. That may mean that after dinner, I may log back on.
Yep. Yeah.
And I may work for another 2 or 3 hours. So I'm integrating life and I'm integrating work into life and I'm integrating life into work.
Yep.
And that's what I think that's why I don't necessarily believe in balance. Again, right? So when I needed to be focused on my son, there was no room for work at that point.
Yep.
Right? And sometimes when I took my chief of staff role, there was no room for, our family had to go into the back burner for a little while because I needed to really focus on that job, and I was just gung ho and all in.
Yep.
So that's what I mean about the balance versus the integration. And again, what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. You have to figure that out yourself. What works for you?
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense for us. I think about the same type of work-life balance and how balance means that something is always not getting the same, level of attention. And I think depending on the week, depending on your energy levels, depending on your mood, depending on the tasks, like every week is going to be a little bit different, right? Like you may say, this week I'm only going to be in the office putting in 30 hours this week because that's what's needed, right? And I have way more on my personal side going on. I have a day off from work and I need to go handle these things. And like, that's okay, right? That's the like planning and kind of working through those things. But then there's some weeks where you're like, hey, I know work, I'm going to be burning the midnight oil because I have to get these things done. And this other family side stuff, I'm going to have to be still prioritize, but be very intentional about that time because I know I'm going to have less this week. So I do think that is really powerful because if you don't look at it from that perspective where they integrate to each other, you're always going to feel like one is not getting the same, attention or value as the other. So I like that perspective a lot. So when you talk about your time in the office, and I feel like leaders often make the mistake of not spending enough time out of the business. How do you spend your time planning and prioritizing like time off and vacation and being able to disconnect while not worrying about, everything that you've left back at the office and being able to truly disconnect?
Okay, I have a lot of opinions about that. So I think that if you think about like just the data, 50% of Americans give time back. They don't take their vacation.
Yep.
And one of the main reasons, if not the main reason why people quit their jobs is because they're burned out. So they don't go together. They're not taking their vacations, but they can't do their jobs because they're so burned out that they just can't handle it.
Yep.
Right? So vacations, I feel like they're good for the employee and they're good for the employer. They're good for the employee in that, you catch up on sleep, you do the whole, mind, body, soul, you rest, you make memories with your family. How many of the amazing memories that you can think of happened at work versus, I saw my kid walk for the first time, or we went to the beach and I saw them touch the water for the first time, and those memories that are made. But then again, you have to really unplug when you're on vacation, because otherwise you're just telecommuting from the beach.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you do take vacation, you come back and, energized, and, that creativity all of a sudden comes back because you're not exhausted, you're not sleep deprived, you are making amazing memories, different memories, right? From the day to day. You're adding on to your personal journey, and you come back to work and you have that additional perspective. Then all of a sudden you are a much better employee. You are, there's so much to be gained all around for the employee and for the employer. But for whatever reason, we, and myself included, I've given a lot of time back, including time that I purchased, because at my company you have the ability to purchase vacation on top of the vacation that they gave you, that I gave back because I'm thinking I'm irreplaceable. I can't take time off. If I take time off, the business is going to stop. And guess what? It doesn't. It doesn't, right? And we have that idea that we are just so important that we can't take the time off. How is the business going to survive without me being there? It will survive. It's going to be okay. The work will be there. But that mentality precludes you from really unwinding and allowing yourself to go through that different experience through your vacation, just through your time off, being away from the office. That is just so important.
Yeah. So I'm assuming then now, at the place that you're at, you've learned, I do need this time, and I know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to be more recharged. I'm going to be able to attack like whatever I need when I go back in. What are some of like the, effective time management, tools or methodologies that you're using to make sure that you're prioritizing the right things at work, so that way you can take that vacation and you're not going to give that time back? What are some of the things you're doing there?
So I think that there's a lot of practical things that you can do. Make sure that you have a backup, right?
Yep.
So that you're not a single point of failure. So when you're leaving, you do have that person who can do your job or can make decisions. When you empower your people, and they do develop the skills to actually do the work when you're not there, right? It's all about like empowerment. And that's a very loaded word. However, empowerment means, hey, go do it. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. I'll be here to, pick you up if you fall.
Yep.
But go and make the mistakes. But that's how you're going to learn, and allow them to go through that. So then when you're not in the office and when you do decide to take that vacation, you have that backing. Again, I feel like that it's all in you. The decision to say, I am going to take time off and it's going to be okay. It's all energy, because if you go and you say, I'm going to take time off, but I'll take my computer just in case, because, something may pop up and, who knows what's going to happen. That's not right. That's not the right energy. You want to be able to say, I deserve it. This is okay. I'm setting my boundary. I'm going to go and I'm going to make memories with my family, and I'm going to be taking the time off, and it's okay. having that conviction, that energy that it is the right thing to do.
Yep.
So just having all of that and that energy and that positivity and make sure that you are empowering your people, that you are, really like you're not just going to leave and without having that structure to make sure that people are going to be successful as a leader. Do you have what you need? What can I do before I go? Let's have these meetings. Let's have conversations. Let's look at the week, right? And let's plan it out. What needs to be covered? Do I need to be contacting my leader to cover some of the things for you? It's just like planning, making sure that people are also supported.
Yep.
Because empowerment doesn't mean abandonment.
Yep. That's true.
So,
I think a lot of people think that is like, if I'm handing this off to you, that it's now like, it's just yours and you run with it. But really, it's effective leadership is you being able to come up with a plan to be able to hand that to that person set up for success.
Sure.
So that it doesn't come back to you. Like we look at that, we call those boomerangs, right? Where it's something that you might delegate away, or, hey, I need you to handle this while I'm gone, but then you don't, properly hand that off. You don't give great next steps, or they don't know where to go with it, or they're maybe not even empowered to make the actual decision. Like that's going to boomerang back to you. So I think that's really important to make sure that that's something that, you're setting up when you do hand those things off.
Right.
Yeah. So I think for my side of the business, we work out of a ticketing system. And so my priorities are pretty much dictated by what is on my schedule. And as we've continued to grow as an organization and me in my role, I've been blessed with the opportunity to have someone that spends a lot of her time to be able to work with me. And so Paige gets to help me with my schedule on a day-to-day basis and make sure that I am being hyper intentional, hyper focused on the right things all the time. And that's not a luxury that everybody gets. And so what are some of the things that, you might recommend for those strategies for time management? Do you use any tools? Are you managing everything on a sticky note? Like what are the ways that you're effectively managing priorities day to day, or something that you would recommend to somebody?
So I'm with you. My schedule dictates a lot of what happens throughout my day. So it's, I schedule everything into my schedule, my calendar, and everyone on my team has access to it. So they know, including times where I block and I say, do not schedule. Right? I'm kids or dinner time or whatever. And so I'm very organized in that respect.
Yep.
Where I will add every single thing to my schedule so that people have predictability as to when they can, drop something in or not.
Yep.
I think automation has really helped. So to the extent that you can automate as much as possible, that is, definitely the way to go. Be flexible because things are going to happen. Like employees are going to call you. Just yesterday, I was in a meeting and I get this text and I'm off now between now and the rest of the year. I banked those days. So, and he knew I was going to be out for the rest of the year. So he's like, do you have 15 minutes? Because I really need to talk to you. I'm like, don't need to be in this meeting. I will give you a call right now. Right. So again, one of my values about my team. So yeah, you have to be flexible and really do that juggling of, what has the highest priority right now. And, try to be as organized as possible, as predictable as possible.
Yep.
And again, here, this is my day. This is what my day looks like, guys. And we also tag up, that's super helpful. First thing in the morning, we have a plan, this is what my day looks like. Anything that we need to be adding on, anything that needs to be modified. So we get together as a team every morning to kind of set the intentions for the day and look at the schedule to make sure, is that still working for all of us?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I guess when you're transitioning someone to, step up into a role that you're dictating more or you're dictating less of their priorities day to day, and instead they're dictating their own priorities. How are you giving them the tools in the tool belt to be able to say, I can't take all that on, or I'm not able to handle that task. I think again, it's the leadership dilemma where you're being relied on as the person who can do it all or always have the answer. How are you empowering your up and coming leaders to be able to say no to things, right? I think that's one of the hardest parts of the leadership journey.
But that's not true though, right? So I don't have all the answers.
Yep.
I don't know everything. And there is a lot of strength in saying, I don't have all the answers.
Yep.
I don't. And it's okay to say, hey, I don't know that. Let me go figure it out, or let's go figure it out together. Mm-hmm. Because then you become human. You're not superhuman. You're not put on a pedestal. You are human, and you have limitations like everybody else does. I certainly do. So I don't have all the answers. And you said something that's very powerful, which is, how do you say no? No is a complete sentence. You don't have to say no because no, but no. No is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And it should be okay for anyone to say no.
Yep.
No. No.
Yeah.
And it is not easy, not because no is not a complete sentence, but because of the ways that we have been raised to people please. Mm-hmm. Oh, what are they going to think about me? If I say no, am I going to be looked down upon? No. You are responsible for your career. You're responsible for setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. And allowing certain things in or not. That's all you. You're the only person who has control over that. Mm-hmm. And if you're not setting boundaries, you are going to be suffering the consequences of whatever it is that you're not saying no to.
Yep.
So no is a very powerful, and it's a completely okay thing to do. But for whatever reason, people don't know how to, or they don't think that it's okay for them to say no.
Yeah.
And setting boundaries, right? So boundary setting is so important. It goes to everything that we're talking about. It goes to, I'm going to go on a vacation. You can call me up to 5 p.m. From 5 to 7 is my time with my kids. After 7, you can call me again. Like setting, I'm better in the morning, right? So the best time for you to catch me is before 11 a.m. That's when I have the most energy. All of that is about setting boundaries. And yeah, are there going to be times where you're going to be talking to somebody at 8 p.m. and your battery is just drained? Sure. Mm-hmm. That's life. But telling them what works best for you and setting those boundaries, I think that really enables people to, be able to work with you in the best way that you can give back to them the best of yourself.
Yeah. And I think that leads me to my next question is, how do you deal with the common thread of high performers always being the ones that are targeted to be promoted to leaders? Mm-hmm. Because I think you look at high performers, and high performers typically are the people that don't say no to almost anything, right? You're like, that person can output everything that I send their way. They're a machine. They can get it all done. And then you're like, bam, I'm going to promote that person up to be a leader, right? Whereas the flip side of that is someone who can truly understand, no, like I can't take that on right now. That's showing better leadership qualities than the person who can just say, I can do it all. How is that handled at Pratt?
Each leader has a different philosophy. I can tell you about my philosophy. Mm-hmm. I am very proud that I have a few people that I've promoted into people leadership roles. Mm-hmm. And people who are going to become leaders that I am already working with them now, right? I'm like, you want to be a people leader? Let's start working together now. Let me just, let's work and spend time doing this. let's do this training together. Let me show you this, right? Like some of the things that people don't do even before they become leaders. I have a person on my team who has expressed, rock star, amazing employee, has expressed a desire to become a people leader. And I said, okay, so I'm going to be doing a reflection at the end of the year. How did we do this year? What went well? What didn't go so well?
Yep.
You know, what kept us, going through the lows together and able to get through the lows together? What are you grateful for? Right? All of that, the reflection for the year. And I said, I created the presentation. I said, please add or delete. What do you think? Should we be adding anything else into that? You got it. Now you go and you manage that. You create, you collect the feedback. And you look at the answers and you see, you're going to give me recommendations. That's what we should be doing next. That type of stuff, even before they become people leaders, is so important because you're starting to show them and teach them what it means to be, a good leader. And then the people who have become leaders and are now working for me and have their own teams, I spend a lot of time with them. A lot of time with them, making sure we do a lot of training. We do a lot of, just time talking about employees. What do they need? How do we develop them? And just like showing them the way, I think it's very important because unfortunately the norm is that these amazing rock stars become people leaders, and a lot of the times they fail because they don't know how to. Dealing with people is not super simple. It's not like sitting in front of a computer and populating a spreadsheet. Right? It's not that simple. So just giving people the tools to be good leaders, become good leaders, even before they are people leaders. I think we can start even before. But at a minimum, when they do become people leaders, what can we do as leaders to make sure that we are enabling them to be successful, to your point, what you were saying before?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to make sure that anyone in the organization that you're looking to bring into a people leader role, that you're spending time before they become a people leader, making sure they have the tools to be effective there. And I think that is one of like the biggest, faults of organizations is that they realize they need someone in a leadership position. And the first thing they do is go look for the top performer, the highest output individual on their team. And then they put that person in that role and they set them up for failure. It's exactly what you're talking about. So is there anything at Pratt that you guys are doing to help cultivate those type of high performers or people that want to be in the people leader positions?
So Pratt has amazing programs for high potential employees, formalized, and then they have programs where, again, for high potential employees where they have the opportunity to be working on a project that's completely outside of what they do day to day. So that they're developing, additional skills and different skills. And then when you do become a manager, there is definitely training available. I feel, though, that spending time with good leaders who have a proven record of, effectuating great organizational success, nothing replaces that. And just having that coaching from those leaders and understanding like little things, even like the leader assimilation, like this is who I am. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
I did it with my team when I took over this job, and they said this is the first time. Some of them have been working for the company for over 20 years, and they had never gone through an assimilation like that.
Yeah.
So just, I think that leading by example and setting the example teaches people a lot more sometimes than just sitting in front of a computer and taking a 4-hour class.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to throw a complete curveball here.
Sure.
We're talking a lot about like how to help emerging leaders and leaders that are coming up within the organization. But I'm really interested in hearing from you, what are some of the things that you're doing now to help yourself, right? Because the leadership journey never ends. And if anything, it it gets harder the further you go, because now the staple items of here's these matrix that you should use, or here's these lessons that I've had, or these standard frameworks that you teach to emerging leaders and people coming up, and you're like, these are some of the frameworks and things you should know. How are you continuing to like develop yourself, right, in your skills? Like, what are some of those strategies?
I am such a curious person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious. So I read a lot. I listen to podcasts, or I'll listen to, leaders who I admire. I don't know if you've heard of Brené Brown.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, amazing leaders out there. Simon Sinek. There's just, and just listen doesn't mean I'm going to be adopting what they're saying.
Yep.
But listening to different perspectives, and even like entrepreneurs like Alex Hermosi. I don't know if you've seen.
Not familiar.
Fascinating guy, with very radical views on being a business owner. Again, just listening to different perspectives, informing my own, but just keeping myself apprised of what's happening out there.
Yep.
What are people doing to make sure that they have cohesive organizations, that they are transforming organizations that are not super, successful or productive? What are some of the tools that are out there that I'm not aware of? Establishing a really good relationship with your HR partner, right? What's out there? What are you seeing? How can is there anything that you can recommend to me? Because I know that I do not know it all. It's the other way around. I have so much to learn, and just having that, humility and being humble, knowing that you don't know everything, and just seeking out what's happening, what's new out there. I love listening to what you do. Some of your perspectives, just being curious, and just trying to learn as much as possible. Because, and again, I've been with the same company for so long, and they have their way of doing things. It doesn't mean it's the only way.
Yep.
What else is out there that we can learn?
Yep. No, that's great perspective. And I think that is one of the key characteristics of a leader, is someone that is just naturally curious. They want to continue to learn, want to continue to be better, because sure, you might have a tried and true framework that you use, and then all of a sudden you learn about something new and you're like, I can tweak this framework that I had. Even if it's just a little bit, this is going to make a huge change, because I also think that this is important. Because, again, your perspective on something is going to be very different from mine, or the person that created a framework, or whatever it is. So being able to have, a bunch of varying opinions that you get to kind of pull and pick your pieces from, I think is really, really impactful. So I guess my last question for you is something I was more curious about as we started the show, and you were talking about, the family, situation that you were dealing with, you stepping away from the business world to be a mom. I think something that I'm not sure if I'll have the opportunity to talk about on the show in the future or not, is someone that went through what you did and, spent the time to take care of your family and be there for that. And I think that's like an incredible thing to be able to do, especially someone who's and just getting to know you, but someone that is very driven and motivated to be, my wife calls it a boss mom, right? Where you're like, I'm an awesome mom, but I'm also a boss at work and I do what I need to do. I think, hearing from your perspective of like some of the things that you did during that time where, yes, the focus was completely family. And I truly believe that that's what your focus was. But that leader in you didn't stop you from learning or staying up to date or staying on top of things that allowed you to propel you back into the business once you were ready. What were some of the things that you were doing there to make sure that you were ready to come back, right? Or is that even something you thought about?
I didn't. I was so focused on my son Jack at that point, and just making sure that he was okay. And I just took that time and I said, okay, I'm gonna get to do things that I've never really had a chance to do before. So I would go on play dates with him. I would go and establish relationships with other moms, which is not something that I was very good at, right? Because all I knew was my professional, my business life, and everything happens so fast, and you only have a certain amount of hours in the day, and you're always just it's just not something that I was really good at.
Yeah.
I started developing those skills. So how do you talk to other moms? What do you talk about?
Yep.
Because all I could talk about before was my job. So what are the other things that people do outside of work? And how does that work? And how do they keep themselves, engaged and motivated and active? And that was a completely different world that I experienced that, again, added so much to that toolbox that today I utilize so often with my employees, which is that human side that, I had been so focused on work for so long, and just not having that for about a year was just, eye-opening, and I learned so much from that time.
Yeah.
It's just being present, right? At the end of the day, it's being present in whatever it is that you're going through at that time. So I wasn't with the kids wishing I was back at work. I was with the kids, and I knew that that time was going to be with them, and taking the advantage and in making the best of that time, being fully present.
Yeah.
Again, it's another thing that I had to learn.
Yeah. And that's amazing. It's great perspective to know that in whatever situation you're presented with, right? Regardless if it's work, if it's personal, if it's I am a salesperson that is at a prospect event and I need to, find a way to make a lead out of this, but everyone here is not a lead. It's like, okay, what else can I do with this moment? Right? What else can I draw from this and pull from that? And I think that is amazing perspective for anyone that wants to be a great leader. It's use every moment that you're given to be able to build something, pull something into the tool belt to make sure that you have that skill for when it is needed down the line. So I love the perspective. I appreciate the time. For us, the end of these shows, we always transition into a little game at the end. I know you mentioned that you had seen a show or two, so I'm not sure if you made it all the way to the end, but at the end, we challenge everybody to a good old-fashioned typing test. And then we tie everybody in to find out your score by tuning into the next episode. Humbled to say that I was taken down in the last episode, and so Colby Coombs was able to beat me in the typing test, and I've been number one for about 5-6 episodes now, and Colby beat me by 1. So I had a 70, he hit a 71. He has dethroned the champ. Now I'm just hoping to hang on to my spot near the top of the leaderboard, but that can be something that you can continue to push my slide down the leaderboard with this typing test. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
So whenever you're ready.
I guarantee he's not going to be dethroned. All right, let's
So
do it.
whenever you're ready, once you click go, you go. This is excellent. I feel like we should change it to 30 seconds because the minute is like painful length of time. Ask Bella how she feels about a minute.
No. Come here. Back, man.
That's good. Oh, boy. That's all we had for today on this episode of the One Poor Problems podcast. I want to say a special thank you to you, Bella, for coming on and sharing your perspective. I had a great time, and I'm excited for people to really hear all about your leadership journey and your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with you.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers. Till next time.